Hello, movie patient, and welcome to Film Therapy. I am Brienne, also known as Miss Movies, also known as your film therapist. I'm not a real therapist, but I play one on the internet just for the show. And as with every film therapy session, I have a guest patient, and my guest patient today is Ashley Davis. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, Brienne, I'm so privileged to be on your show. Thank you so much for asking me. I'm super nervous but excited at the same time.
Don't be nervous.
That's just my personality is
Okay.
always nervous.
My personality is also always nervous. Maybe not nervous, but my personality is always like, "Oh, I'm not going to do well at this."
Yes,
Like that's
that is
always me.
exactly the same thing. So I think this is good for us.
Okay, good. I'm glad that we're here together and that we could share this experience together. For those of you that have never joined us before, this is how film therapy works. I'm going to be asking my guest patient, Ashley, three questions. They're the same three questions each time until I decide to change them. They're what is a film that inspires you? What is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, maybe it's happy. And what is a film that helps you through difficult times? So I started this show because I do suffer from depression and I find that film kind of helps me cope and just kind of distracts me for a while. So I figure most people probably do that too. I'm sure I'm not alone. And that's why we're sharing these experiences with you. The end. So yeah, that's how it works.
All right. So do I need to introduce myself now? Like,
No, I just decided to leave it open. So if you wanted to say something, you could. But
okay.
but here we are. So before we get into our first question, Ashley, who are you? What are you all about? What's your deal?
All
How do I
right.
know you? How do we know each other? All
All
this.
right, well, we know each other from the Twitter sphere. We're both met through probably like TV fights or movie fights, like all of the Screen Junkies stuff. I remember seeing you on the fan cam or like the fact checking chairs. Like, oh, like that person's super cool. Oh my gosh, she followed me. I like this is the best day of my life. So that's how we know each other. For those of anyone watching that doesn't know who I am, I my day job is as a classroom teacher. I teach ninth grade English, and I also teach the Avid elective, which is a college readiness program to help students. And when I'm not doing that, I'm also on YouTube. I have a channel along with a group of friends who I also met through TV fights and all of the Screen Junkie stuff. We're the Tough Channel, where we have a show called Fan Friction, which is kind of a spiritual homage to movie fights and TV fights. We kind of do the same thing. We try to change it up just a little bit so that we're not like an exact copy. And I also host a show based off of that show because I love meta stuff. It's called BFF, where we review a movie from fan fiction that neither me or my husband have seen. Because, like you, I've missed so many movies for various reasons, and I always feel like I'm catching up.
Well, I think that everyone's always catching up. I'm sure there's people out there that I just feel like sometimes I feel alone in admitting the things that I haven't seen, because I feel like people try to hide what they haven't seen just because they don't want to admit that, which is frustrating.
Yes, there's so many classic films or like genre films that I miss. It's like, oh, like you, why haven't you ever seen Jaws? It's like, well, it's not my fault that I'm afraid of everything, and I didn't want to watch that when I was younger.
It
Like
makes
I've seen it now, but before fan fiction, I had never seen that. I was like, oh, and I got so upset during that movie. It's like, oh my gosh, like why did you not tell me this was gonna happen?
but it's good to catch up on the classics so then you can kind
Yes.
of be on board with other people as well. Like I definitely am working through my list right now. I have The Fly and Short Circuit like at home ready to watch, and I'm like, I need to get around to that, and hopefully I'll get around to that soon
I
because.
think I've seen Short Circuit. I know I haven't seen The Fly, so I also need to probably catch up on both of those. So
And it's kind of fun also when you are catching up and like letting people know what you're watching, and then they like give you some sort of fun tweet back about like something they liked or just with their general opinion. It's kind of
hmm
nice. A little
yeah,
interactive.
I like it when people are supportive, like, oh, I'm glad you're finally seeing that instead of being judgmental, like, why haven't you seen that before? It's
Right.
like, well, it's not my fault that I was born in the 80s and that movie came out in the 70s.
I think that's also, and I've talked about this before with like Hector Navarro, is that it's also about your upbringing. Like my husband had a TV in his bedroom growing up, and he had access to HBO and all of cable, and I didn't. I didn't have cable, and ever growing up, I didn't have access to any other movies aside from what was at the video store, the local video store that we would go to randomly. So I really didn't start watching film until I started working at Blockbuster in like the late 90s. So I feel like he already had all this background of all this
Hmm.
knowledge that he, was able to watch all these films because they were easily accessible to him, whereas things weren't easily accessible to me.
Yeah, we had cable off and off or off and on growing up, and my parents would always tape stuff from like Cinemax or HBO. So we had like a decent library of movies. But like my personality is very obsessive. If I like a movie, especially when I was younger, I watched that movie every day. Much to my parents' upset, they're like, "Why are you letting her watch that again?" And like they didn't. My mom worked a lot and my dad worked nights, so he was asleep during the day. So I was probably watching some movies I shouldn't have been, at the, age appropriateness. So
Right.
like there's like a lot of movies I know really well, but it's because I watched them over and over again every day that I missed out on a lot of stuff because like I just get obsessed and just rewatch things that I already like.
Right, exactly. That's me and Clue. I watch that over and over again all the time.
That's a fun one.
All right, well,
Yeah.
let's get into our questions
All
today.
right.
So, Ashley, what is a film that inspires you?
All right, and I love this question because, like, lots of people that have been on this show have talked about, like, you could just take it in so many directions. Like, if I was in my English class and we presented this question, we would analyze that word inspire and go, okay, like, what does that mean to you? Like, does that mean like you're inspired by someone's story? Are you inspired by like the background behind the movie, artistic things? And so for me, it's kind of a bit of both artistically and just the story itself. It's the 2005 movie Good Night and Good Luck, the first George Clooney's, I think it's his directorial debut. Um, it's an independent film, which I wasn't aware of that at the time. I was just excited about it because it's the story of Edward R. Murrow, who was a very like seminal figure in radio and television broadcasting, and it's the story of him going up against Senator Joseph McCarthy during the whole Red Scare. Like he wasn't the only figure that was challenging the senator, but it's one of the ones that's kind of like he was the most well known, so his is the story that gets told in media books and then in this movie.
I have
And
never seen this movie.
it's a
That's
really
not a surprise,
it's
obviously.
okay. I highly recommend it. I think it took a lot of risks stylistically because it's a black and white film, and we all know that those are not really common releases. This is one that was intended to
Right.
be black and white. They actually filmed it in color, but they set it up to be great, like to film and look good in grayscale. So it actually looks like a classic film from the 1950s and 1960s. And it was made for very little money. It was like a $7 million budget, but it has like an amazing cast. Like not only do you have George Clooney, who plays Fred Friendly, who is like one of the like behind the scenes people at CBS. David Strathairn plays Edward R. Murrow. Robert Downey Jr.'s in it. Ray Wise. Just there's like it's a star-studded cast, but they must have been working for like whatever like the actor minimum wage scale is because like they have like all these wonderful people, and it's just such an important story. It's one that's not really told in a lot of like high school history classes just because I mean you've been a teacher, you know how like compact a curriculum can be. You can't literally get to everything, and so some stories fall by the wayside, and they might talk a little bit about like the Senator McCarthy stuff, but they're not going to talk about like the daringness of like a new medium challenging a sitting senator.
Yeah, that's where they kind of might ask you to do reports on your own and come back and like present those to the class.
Hmm.
Maybe not necessarily as this particular topic or person, but maybe like you have a choice of here's some things that you can report on
Hmm.
and you can choose, oh, I'll do that because it goes with this movie. Because that's what I would choose. If it went with a movie, I
Yeah.
would definitely be like, yes, I will go with that. That's part of my research.
And I was inspired to watch this movie because like my minor is in film studies, so like our classes were about like the general, like a pretty like heavy media, like all media studies curriculum. Like everybody had to take Com 1301, and so we'd have to learn about the history of every like type of communication. And so that was a big part of our textbook, was learning about that. And so then when the movie came out, I was like, oh, I already know about this. I'm excited about it. And so my mom and I, we saw it way late in its run, because it was released in '05, but I actually saw it in '06, and it was a part of my film project where we had to review a film from every decade in the entirety of like cinema history, so all the way from 1890 to the present. And three of the films we had to actually see in the theater, and so this was one of the ones I chose to watch in the theater. And the other two choices don't really hold up very well. This one has held up over time. This film has always stuck with me, and it's just such a great movie. The acting is great, it looks great, it's a good story, and it's not melodramatic like sometimes biopics and like I can't remember like the other name for the genre, but sometimes they can be a little too like schmaltzy or like overly sentimental about stuff. But this one is very cut and dry and very realistic.
I don't know the word schmaltzy.
It's kind of a Yiddish thing
Okay.
that I've borrowed. I'm not actually, of that culture, so
Oh,
but
okay. But you
yeah.
liked it, so there you
Yeah,
go.
I like that word. I watched a lot of The Critic growing up, so I heard a
Oh,
lot of
nice.
those terms.
That's cool.
It's just a great movie. It's not streaming anywhere currently, but I know you can rent it from Amazon. I'm pretty sure you could get it from the Netflix discs too,
Yeah,
because I know that's still a thing.
that is a thing. That is a thing that I do. So I will add it to my queue, which rhymes, and I like that. Also, wanted to say I believe this was up for Best Picture, right? Against Crash, and that's
I think it might have been. I know it was nominated for several Academy Awards. I didn't like look up which ones.
I
Uh,
know that it for sure was nominated for Best Picture, and I believe it was the year that Crash won, but I could be wrong. I don't see anyone in the waiting room right now that could like answer that for me. So I'm gonna go with that, and
all right,
later someone can
we'll
fact check me.
yeah, we'll fact check that later. Normally that's my job on my show. I should have done that ahead of time, but
It's
uh,
okay.
but
That's
yeah,
fine. Don't worry.
it's just a good movie. And for it to like impact someone that, like, as I saw it when I was in my like early 20s, and it was an independent film, so I think that's like a credit to George Clooney's vision to like, oh, you can actually like make someone that young care about a topic that is from the past, because it's so like, as we get further and further away from like the early era of television and film, it's a lot harder to get people on board to watch older movies. And even though
Oh,
that's not old, it feels old.
so true, especially because I was thinking the other day, like there's so much content out there right now, like an insane amount of content. There are, you know, I I so many things that I'm like, I don't. Why am I watching this? There's just too much. Like, and
Hmm.
how you can filter out like what you want to watch is even more frightening to me because there's just. I'm like, I'm shocked people are watching this right now just because I'm like, there's so much other content out there, guys. So much.
Yeah, it's just everywhere, and it's just going to keep getting like where there's just more and more as like more independent people start going out on their own and creating their own content. That's why Hollywood is afraid of things like YouTube, and like every time there's like a new medium that they think is like an upstart. I don't think television had quite the same fight against radio, because like a lot of people that worked in radio just naturally transitioned to television. But television versus the film industry, and now Hollywood versus like online media, there's a lot of like different battles. And that's another thing that inspired me about this movie, is just the nerve of someone who has a good job. Like Edward R. Murrow had been working for CBS for years, and for him to go like, we can do more with this medium than just like have like fun, entertaining things. Like we can actually do something that means something. And he even paid for like the advertising, like on one of the episodes of his show where like the network was scared. It's like, you can't go up against this person. Like, Alcoa, our sponsor, is not going to pay for the ads. He's like, fine, me and Fred will pay for the ads. We'll split it. His kids just won't have Christmas this year. It's like, but Fred's Jewish. It's like, well, don't tell him that. He loves Christmas. It's a good movie.
That's so amazing. Let's go into our second question, which is, what is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, maybe it's happy.
All right, so this is definitely going to go into the more painful territory. The scene that really triggers a memory for me is in the very beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy, when Star-Lord loses his mom, because that movie came out the same year I lost my mom. Like, literally that summer, she had passed away in June, and then we saw that movie in August. We didn't see it right away, so like the theater was pretty, not like empty, but it was definitely later in Guardians run, and like we had no clue like anything about Guardians or whatever. So when that came up on the screen, I lost it. Like, I literally in the theater was like crying, trying to like hold on to like my husband's hand, and he's like, are you okay? Do you need to leave? And I'm trying not to like embarrass myself in this theater. And it was just like the traditional like sense of the word triggered, which I know like some people throw around a lot, but like that's what happened to me. And like, I will always connect that movie to that like whole summer of my life of losing my mom suddenly, and then just trying to like pick my life back up after she was gone, because it was very sudden and it was very hard to like come back from that, because like you don't ever expect when you're young like me, like even though like I'm not that young, but to me I was, to lose your mom, who was basically like for our family, she was kind of like the rock. Like, everything like hinged on her, and then she's gone. And I'm so glad that I didn't have to go back to work right away, because I don't think I could have.
Right. Now, was she ill like his mother?
My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. We got the diagnosis on Memorial Day, actually. Like, before that, like that whole school year had been kind of hard for me the first semester, just because sometimes school's challenging. If you've never been a teacher, like it's not like what they portray in the media sometimes, or like what yeah, or what society, like that. I love that meme about like what I do all day versus what people think I do, what my mom thinks I do. It's a hard job. And like the second semester had gotten better, and I was like feeling really inspired. And that's also the semester I bought my house. And so things were looking really good. And then on Memorial Day, like my dad called me. We had gone out. It was actually the weekend of our Comic-Con that we have here in Houston called Comicpalooza. And we just decided to go on a whim, like, hey, let's have a fun day. And we went out to eat, and my dad called. And at first I thought it was my mom, because usually he doesn't call me. And so I was like all excited. And then he was like, I have something I need to tell you. And it was just so strange, like the way he did it, because my dad's a very eccentric person. And then he told me this poem that he wrote, like, which is like, okay, like, did you really write a poem? Like, what? Like, it was just so bizarre. Like, I don't even remember what he said, but I think I Googled a phrase to see if he had plagiarized it, and he didn't. So, because my dad's very weird. And I just remember like walking back to the table and like telling my husband, like, my mom has cancer, and like she hadn't been feeling really well, but she just thought she was tired.
Right.
And so because she got the diagnosis so late, and my parents are also like, they didn't have health insurance. My parents didn't have a lot of money. So that really also impacted the care that she was able to receive. Right. And she was in the hospital for a while, and then they're like, well, you have to go home now, you'll be fine. And them sending her home is what I think was the catalyst of her deteriorating. And so like she came home one weekend and then deteriorated. We took her back to the hospital on like that Monday, and then by like I think it was Monday or Tuesday, and by Tuesday evening she passed away.
So that was a pretty quick turnaround from
it was
the diagnosis.
Yes, it was very quick.
were they even able to start any kind of treatment, or was she past the point of treatment? How does that what does that
They,
look like?
if I remember correctly, like they were going to try to start treatment, but then like after they had sent her home, it was with the intention of like, okay, we'll work on like your treatment, but her condition had deteriorated so much like over that weekend because I think they forgot to put her pain medicine on her. Like there was like a pain patch. And so like everything just kind of like snowballed out of control, and they had to take her back up there, and then her condition was so bad in the emergency room that they were like, we can't transport her, and like this, like we need you guys to understand that like there's really nothing else that we can do anymore, and it was
Wow.
devastating.
Well, of course, that's devastating.
Yes. So
And
yeah,
this
from
was,
Memorial Day until like early, yeah, she passed away on the 17th of June, a Tuesday.
wow, that's incredibly quick.
Yes, and I was supposed to like go to a like I was at a work conference, and I had to leave early to go be with her in the hospital, and then like I didn't go back to the rest of that work conference because it's like I couldn't even like get out of bed.
Now, how close do you live to your parents?
They literally for the longest time lived in the same like apartment complex we did. Like
Whoa.
we had an apartment there as well because it was like the most affordable place to live like in our town while we were still trying to get established. So like I've always lived in the same town as my parents.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty special. What about your husband's family? Do they live close to?
Yes, they actually live like we all lived in the same town, but they lived like a few streets over. So we've always lived very close to our families. We haven't like we're at the like we never like escaped from our town kind of thing.
Because anytime I don't live near my parents, and they're older now, they're in their 70s. And so anytime I get a phone call from one of them, I my heart usually drops because I'm
Hmm.
just worried because first of all, they're calling me, number
Yeah.
one. But like I always just think like, is this bad news? And I don't know why I do that, and I don't know if it's because of how old they are. And I know, certain things about them deteriorating just it naturally as one's body does when they get older. But I do think that. So I prefer a text from them first, so then I know okay everything's okay. But when I get
Yeah.
that call, I'm like, okay, what's going to be on the other line?
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sure other people go through this with their parents too, and you had that call, which
Yeah,
is
it was because you think everything's okay. Because like my mom would text me occasionally, but they definitely, especially like my dad is not tech savvy at all. But my mom, like she figured out how to text on her own. Like she taught herself. It was so cute. Like everything was like triple spaced, and I'm like, how did you learn how to do this? But whatever, and just and like for a while, like she could still text even when she was in the hospital. But eventually, she had lost like all feeling in her limbs, so she couldn't do that anymore, and it was just so like sad to see somebody who was so strong because like my mom like had gone through like the worst childhood in the history of children. Like her, she didn't have like the best home life, and
Mhm.
like she had survived so much over the years. She was probably one of the smartest people I knew that didn't have a college education because that just wasn't something that was told to her like, hey, you could like go to college. It was like, you need to find a man, he needs to be rich.
Sure.
Like that was the kind of generation she came through. Like she worked at NASA, all sorts of stuff, and just
Wow.
like stubborn as all get out. And just to see like the rapid deterioration of like the person that like you looked up to, it was just devastating. And like when like in the movie for Guardians of the Galaxy, like Star Lord's like afraid to like even approach her and talk to her because he's young, and like he has that regret. And then like that scene is paid off later in the film, and like you can feel like he finally has a sense of closure with
Right.
that.
So then how did you move through that scene to the rest of the movie? Did you have to leave for a while and come back,
I
or
was
did you
able
stay
to
there?
I did. I remember staying there. I was able to calm myself down like after the scene was over, just kind of like with breathing, and like my husband was there. He had my hand, so I didn't have to leave the theater. So I was able to get through the rest of the movie pretty fine. And then I started to get like a little upset again when like his mom showed back up, and you see her in that state. And now I can watch that movie and I'm fine, because it's not like the too soon situation. Like I still get emotional, but like I don't have to, like I'm not getting into like a panic attack.
Well, plus it came on so closely after what had just happened to you.
Yes.
So it makes a lot of sense. So let's go to what makes you happier when
Yes.
you are sad and when you're wanting to feel better. What's a movie that helps you through difficult times?
All right, and again, there's like so many things I could choose because I just love all sorts of movies, and sometimes I'll even just like watch like little like reviews of movies, like of like funnier ones to like help me cope. But one of the movies I really enjoy if I'm just having like a bad day is Office Space. I now like the director's name totally left my mind. He did King of the Hill and Beavis and Butthead.
We talked about this last week on 6 Degrees of Feature Film. What do you know? And of course, like the name is just going boop right out of my mind, right out of my mind right now.
Somebody
that came out in 1999.
I do know that as well, and I actually I rewatched it last night because again, it's just a fun movie. Mike Judge, thank you, Sam, in the chat.
I can't even see the chat. Why is my chat not working?
I have like two windows open so I could see.
Like you might have is it the Hangouts chat or is it the YouTube chat?
It's the YouTube chat.
Oh, why can't I see it? I don't know what's happening. I apologize to those that are in the waiting room that I can't see because I don't know what's up with my internet.
Oh, the internet.
Oh, the internet. So Mike Judge.
Yes, yeah, Mike Judge. I just think his humor is so great, and like that movie is so relatable.
Yes, definitely, and as teachers, yes.
Yes, as teachers, and if like you've ever worked in an office or you've worked with people. I'm getting a message in the chat. They're saying that your mic is a little low.
Okay, I'll turn it up. There. Let's see if that helps everyone. Or I'll do it this way. This way is probably better. There we go.
All right, they'll let us know if it's better.
Like I'm sad that I can't see and interact with everyone. I feel sad about that. Oh well.
Yeah, they're saying it's better now.
Okay, great. Excellent.
But yeah, Office Space, like just like the opening scene when they're they're all stuck in traffic, like that is so relatable. Traffic is so bad in Houston. I know in Los Angeles it's even worse. And like the whole like scene where he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get into this lane." Yep. And now that one stopped. And there's like a guy in a walker, like literally like passing him up. That it's just so I'm so glad that like my job is like literally like 10 or 12 minutes away from here. But when I used to have to commute to school or anytime we've had to go to professional development, which is always like on the other end of nowhere on our town, it's like, oh, traffic is the worst. How do people do this every day?
How do they do it every day? I do want to know that. After this, I have a class, so I have to get into some traffic, and it'll take me like 40 minutes to an hour to get to where I'm going, even though it's only like, 10 miles or less away.
Because traffic. That scene and like when he's like he goes to his therapy and then like the hypnosis doesn't take right because he never really leaves it, and he just has this cavalier attitude about everything. And when he's interviewing with the two Bobs and just letting it all like, yeah, this is what I really think of this company, this is what I do like at my job all day, and they just think that he's upper management material. And then
totally.
Lumbergh is like, I have to disagree with you there because like he's late all the time. He doesn't do what he's supposed to do. Like there's just so many things that are relatable because we've all had coworkers where it's like, how did you get away with that? If I had done the same thing you did, like my butt would be in so much trouble.
Yeah,
And
how
then
does that work? The politics that happen in all workspaces is ridiculous.
yes, and the fact that he just like didn't even like show up to work, and like the boss keeps calling him, and he's like, "Whatever, I was fishing, whatever." And
I'm gonna come
the
here and gut this fish right here on this desk
I mean,
just because I can.
he breaks his cubicle open and is just like, "Yeah, this is the best." It's like other people work there. Like, what is wrong with you? And
There
then
is a Funny or Die skit where they took the real Michael Bolton and inserted him as Michael Bolton,
yes,
and I think that's hilarious.
that is
They did it okay.
yeah.
It's not great, but they did the best they could.
Yeah, that's pretty cute. I love that Michael Bolton has a sense of humor about himself because like they
Mhm.
make that comment about like it's not I'm like why should I change? He's the one that sucks. It's like, well, he actually has like a good sense of humor, but yeah, and the whole scene where he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a Michael Bolton fan." Like, "Yeah, I love him too." And he had to lie, and the only reason he probably didn't get rehired is cuz he wanted to be called Mike instead of Michael.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And then poor Milton.
Milton, at least the good news is now we can all have red staplers. Do you have a red stapler at
Yes, I
school?
do. I went to
Oh,
school. I was
yes.
actually at school yesterday. This is my school stapler. Only I am allowed to use the stapler, or if
Yes.
the children want to use it, they cannot take it away from my desk because, otherwise that's how they get broken.
Hmm.
But yeah, this is my red swing line that I paid probably way too much money for, just because, school supplies are so expensive.
Right. Now, do the children know what the significance is or
I
no?
don't think most of them do. I did have a student one year when I let another teacher borrow a different maroon stapler because maroon is one of our school colors, and he thought it was the swing line and got all excited about it. And she told me all about it. And like, yeah, I don't know why he was so obsessed with your stapler. It's like he must have seen Office Space. But yeah, I don't think they get it, which is fine. They just think, oh, I need to borrow your stapler, miss.
Hmm. There you go.
And yeah, Milton with the whole like, oh yeah, like he was fired actually, but like they never like stopped paying him and never told him. So we fixed the error. So we need to tell him he's like let go. No, we fixed the error, and they don't even tell him that like, hey, like sorry, dude. And the whole cake situation, that was way too small of a cake for an office that size, and he doesn't get a piece. And we've all been there where it's like, oh man, they didn't order enough food for everybody. Like now, like
Right.
what are we supposed to do?
That
And the
is so
cop
true. That
and
is so
the best scene is the copier scene.
yes, the
PC load
fax
letter.
machine. Yes.
PC load letter. What is that? We have an like each of our departments at school has their own communal printer, and
Mhm.
so many times like it is like not worked for whatever reason. Like I
Of
have that
course.
song playing in my head and like picturing myself like beating this printer down because it is so frustrating. Like, oh, I went to go print something. You go
Mhm.
to pick it up and it's not there, or someone took it, or
Yep,
something.
we all have that. We all have that. The Rico was the only one that would ever work for me, like consistently. I was like, oh, this is my baby. I know how to fix it. Like,
Yes.
no.
Those are pretty easy to fix. Now we have Xerox, like actual Xerox machines,
Right.
and they're like way complicated. You have to put like your number in to even
Yeah.
use it.
That gets a little nuts. And then
Or
it's like, here's
especially
your allotment of copies. And I'm like, no, no,
I
no.
like I
Don't
teach
tell
English, like we need all the copies to annotate. Like the children can't annotate like in the book. It doesn't work that way.
me. Yeah. Get real. Get
Yeah.
real. Public school.
Oh, it's the joys of school.
But thank you so much, Ashley, for joining me today on Film Therapy. Where can the other patients find you?
All right, you can find me on Twitter at that_Mrs. Davis. You can find me over at the Tough Channel doing fan friction. We're coming back in late August with a 10 new episodes that are going to run from August until I think like early November. I forgot the exact schedule, but yeah, 10 new episodes of that. Uh, got BFF going on this Sunday. I should be uploading a Flash episode because we're getting caught up on that. We also, my husband and I started a new channel called Geek to My Nerd, where we've been doing some live streams of some different video games that we may have missed,
Nice,
or
nice.
just games that we thought were fun. And we're going to start adding some different content to there in the future. So
Do you do
subscribe.
that? Do you have a Twitch channel as well?
We do, and it is also Geek to My Nerd. We just haven't used it yet because we're so used to using YouTube, but we'll eventually probably do stuff there because I think more gaming people are on Twitch.
Right. And what is your channel again, just so that way?
It's Geek to My Nerd.
All right. Very excited. And is it TO or like the number 2?
It's TO.
Okay, perfect.
I just said hi in the chat, so it would appear there.
Okay, excellent. And you can find me all day, every day on Twitter at Miss Movies or Instagram and Snapchat Miss_movies because I can't get it everywhere. It's impossible. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. We will see you next time. Bye. 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 Bye.